Evolution of religion. Homo sapiens sapiens is a religious species. This is one of the few behavioral universals of the human species. Though there is individual variation in the strength of this trait, no society is without it. Well, actually, there are very few tribal societies who have no concept of a deity. However, those that tried to eliminate it have failed. Religion is ineradicable. There is clearly no biological basis for particular religions, but it is likely that there is a biological basis for the capacity for religion. Neanderthals apparently did not have religion. The contrast between the religious artifacts of Homo sapiens sapiens and their absence in Homo neanderthalensis in their regions of overlap could hardly be greater. While Homo sapiens had intricate burials, a burial of two children in Sungir, Russia, contained 10,000 shell beads, each of which took from 1 to 3 person-hours to prepare. Neanderthals apparently dug the shallowest possible graves to keep the bodies from stinking. The Shenadar burial of a Neanderthal with flowers, even if it is confirmed, is a very rare and isolated instance. Neanderthal pendants associated with the Châteauperonian culture have been mostly dismissed as imitative of the Aurignacian culture of the Cro-Magnon, and even if they were not, their connection with religion is very unclear. Neanderthal caves totally lack the wall art that abundantly and resplendently represents Cro-Magnon religious experience. Anthropologist David Lewis Williams calls Neanderthals congenial atheists. Yet Neanderthals had brains at least as large as those of modern humans. Other groups of Homo sapiens all over the world had a similar abundance of religious practice. The evolution of religion in the modern human species may have evolved and involved a change in brain quality unconnected with a change in brain size, which has remained unaltered in Homo sapiens for at least 100,000 years. Specific areas and functions of the brain have been implicated in the mystical religious experience. Neurologists, for example, like Andrew Newberg and Eugene de Anquilly, have been particularly active in researching the brain activities associated with religion. They point out, for example, that when humans enter an altered state of consciousness, the orientation association area of the brain, which in the left lobe is associated with the sensation of having a limited body, and in the right lobe with a sense of space that a person occupies, and that the orientation association area of the brain contribute to out of body experiences. Of course, religion is not pathological, but brain pathologies can help scientists to understand its neurological basis. Stimulation of the right temporal lobe by electrodes or pathological stimulation by epilepsy produces experiences closely paralleling the near death experience of passing through a tunnel toward the light. Similar effects are also produced by the drug ketamine. The patterns of brain activity during religious ecstasy are very similar, according to Newberg, to those of other forms of ecstasy, for example, sexual ecstasy. Stimulation of the amygdala can create a sensation of awe, which is also part of the complex of religious feeling. Of course, religion does not consist only of such experiences. Religions also have content, belief in life after death, supreme being or supreme beings, universal mythological stories, etc. The human brain cannot not think. Therefore, when religious experience first evolved, humans struggled to make sense of it. See the evolution of intelligence. A side effect of intelligence may have been the susceptibility to altered mental states induced by natural compounds such as psilocybin in some mushrooms, sensory deprivation or deprivation, as in a cave, ritual rhythmicity, or particularly vivid dreams, which further contributed to the circumstances that favored the evolution of religion. Religion would probably have been a local aberration in early human populations had it not provided some evolutionary advantage. In modern tribal societies, shamans who have and can affirm exceptional religious experiences have considerable social power, which can translate into greater resources and reproductive opportunities. No doubt this was also the case during the prehistory of Homo sapiens sapiens. David Lewis Williams points out that this would be the same in the Lascaux cave as in modern charismatic Christianity. In a church, as in a cave, those individuals who receive showers of blessing are revered by the others. This would be the within population fitness advantage that is necessary for natural selection. Once the trait was established, or at least common within a tribe, this tribe would have advantages over other tribes that did not possess it. For example, social cohesion and identity that allowed them to prevail in conflicts. Individuals within the tribe would benefit from membership in a tribe in which religion was established by biology and or culture. See group selection. Although all Homo sapiens groups have religion, there was a striking development of religion when Homo sapiens encountered Homo neanderthalensis in Europe, and later when the most recent ice age forced northern European tribes southward, where they encountered tribes that already lived in southern Europe. Religion then functioned in tribal identity. There were geographical differences in types and styles of artwork, for example, cave painting versus pendants versus sculptures. Different caves specialize on different animals, reflecting differences in established traditions. There have been many different attempted explanations of the Cro-Magnon cave paintings. Some anthropologists say that the paintings were sympathetic magic to promote successful hunting. However, as David Lewis Williams points out, the set of animals in the paintings is not the same as the animals that the people ate. For example, they did not eat bears and lions. Only about 15% of the paintings show animals with spears. They obviously performed a religious function, but what was it? Lewis Williams points out that the paintings resemble what people at the time would have seen during hallucinations. During some of the geometric symbols resemble the images seen during migraines. The animal images are not in their natural habitats and appear to be floating with no particular orientation with respect to one another or the ground, and they sometimes lack hooves. To the Cro-Magnon, as to many recent tribal peoples, the wall of a cave may have represented an interface between the outer world and the underworld. When the prehistoric people entered a cave, they were literally entering the underworld. In the darkness, they would hallucinate from sensory deprivation and possibly also from the high levels of carbon dioxide. Then, when the lamps were lit, they would paint the images that they had seen. Sometimes the artists would also paint their hands, leaving either positive or negative images of them as a mark of direct contact with the underworld. Hand contact with the wall and the process of spit painting were part of the overall religious experience. The visionary quality of the painting is particularly evident in the deepest recesses of the caves where quick sketches of many animals overlapped. Next would come the communal aspect. The solitary visionary could then lead other people down into the cave, where his or her paintings would represent visual evidence that they had indeed made contact with the world of spirit animals. Unlike the modern view of the paintings, which harsh light, the Cro-Magnon could have seen them flickeringly illuminated by small lamps. The shamans could have manipulated the visitors by suddenly surprising them with a previously hidden image. They also had flutes, and there is evidence that they struck the sides of stalactites, creating ritual sounds. As Lewis Williams says, the caves, if not the hills, he said, were alive with the sound of music. Perhaps only the shamans went deep into the caves to paint or carve. Some paintings are as much as a kilometer from the entrance, and perhaps only their associates followed them later. The shallower reaches of the cave served as the assembly rooms for the general population, and it is in such places that the large, vivid images are found. The shamans claimed that they had seen these visions would be credible to the general population, all of whom would at least have had, to them, inexplicable dreams. With the advent of civilization, religion was usually dominated by priests and kings and used as a tool of oppression of the masses, as Marxists and other sociologists have pointed out. that religion is the opium for the masses and keeps the people peaceful and at bay. The power structure that provided an advantage of some people over others in a society could also allow one city state to dominate another. This role of religion continues to this day, and at the same time, there has been a parallel lineage of prophets who have visions and criticized social norms. In ancient Israel, for example, practically all the prophets were outcasts who lived in huts and caves and were sorely hated by the priests and the kings. The foregoing does not mean that there can be no such thing as revealed religion from a higher deity, in which many scientists believe. However, rather, evolution explains the neurological basis that made human spirituality possible. Religion will be with the human species probably as long as it exists. Of course, not just a religious sense of reverence, but specific and even fundamentalist religious doctrines seem to be here and pervade the world to this day. With a rush of Enlightenment optimism, our third president, Thomas Jefferson, said, quote, "There is no young man alive today who will not die a Unitarian," end quote. But it is the most fundamentalist forms of religion that are now spreading the most rapidly in the world. Today, as during the Paleolithic, people want the assurance that they have a degree of magical control over their health, wealth, and fate, and over the people. And they want to be told what to believe rather than to face the dangers of the unknown.